Okay.
Hello, good evening, Kingsley. Jai Shri Mataji, thank you for being with us. Welcome everybody who are watching our little stories or big stories. This time I'm with Kingsley, which I know for a long time, but I don't know him well. Therefore, I want you, Kingsley, if you don't mind, to present yourself. Tell few things about you, please.
Well, Ruth and I, we were married by Sri Mataji in 1984, and we traveled around a lot because she was a Swiss diplomat, and we ended up in nine different postings, um, and I followed her. And when we got married, she was basically the breadwinner, and Sri Mataji said, "Well, Ruth said, does that mean I can't have children?" And she said, no, no, he likes children, and he likes cooking and looking after the home and stuff. And basically, that's always been my role in the marriage. I mean, Ruth cooks very well as well. We traveled around a lot. We know a lot of people. We met you briefly, I know, in Romania when we were in Bulgaria for nearly 5 years. In fact, in the 90s, after
Yes.
the end of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and that was a very fascinating place. Possibly for a long time my favorite posting. Very busy for my wife. Um, I came into Sahaja Yoga when I was 31. I'd been basically a seeker all my life. When I was 3, I wandered out of the house. We lived in a green lane in Reigate, where I was born in Surrey. And I wandered out. It was a summer night. And I sneaked out of the front door at 3 years old and walked down the road to try and find the source of the church bells that were ringing. And that's one of my earliest memories. And my parents were fairly poisoned against Christianity because my father's mother was a bit of a fanatic and a bit of a domineering person, and a very keen Christian. But my mum thought that Sunday school was a good thing, so I would go to Sunday school, and later on I was a member of the Crusaders Union, which we have in England, and yeah, I mean, I was quite a fervent Christian at school and what have you, and I had a lovely time, and I look back on it fondly. And I had a very blessed life, a very nice childhood. I was an only child, so I got spoiled. I was 9 the day that John Lennon met Paul McCartney, and so I grew up with the Beatles, and that was a very, very exciting time. And at school, I was lucky. I did French and that sort of thing, which set me up from an early age, which set me up for being married to a Swiss diplomat, which was great. Sri Mataji knew all this, of course. Um, I had a very interesting early education because my mum was very keen on education. And as an only child, as I say, I went to quite a nice school when I was 5 or 6. So I was doing classical history and looking at ancient Egyptian cartouches and this kind of thing. And that made the next part of the second part of my life very exciting. And mother knew all this. So yeah, then I left home at about 18, and I went into being a library assistant, and failed my library exams. I've never been very good at studying. Basically, I love history, but I don't remember the dates. And that's the story of the whole thing. So I went down to Brighton to go to library college. And in Brighton, I met interesting people and settled into a life of hippiedom, you might say, listening to lots of music, going round from house to house, smoking a lot of hashish, doing the things that one did in those days. And I can't say I look back on it with shame or anything as a yogi, because it was a transitional phase for me. I met people, and I met people who were involved with gurus. And I was interested myself, as I said to you, in ancient Egypt. I built a scale model pyramid, which is quite sort of notorious among some of our brothers and, who knew me from those days in Brighton, which I would sit under. I did a lot of astrology. I did the I Ching. I loved. I still loved Jesus, even though I felt an affinity for Jesus, even if I wasn't a Christian anymore. And I had a beautiful, beautiful picture of Govinda on the wall in my living room. But I swore I would never have a guru. I mean, I saw these people with. There was this friend of mine who became an adept of TM, and he started out as a very jolly boy, and he ended up going very grey and sad. And he would come round and try and persuade me that this was the thing to do. And I said, no way. You know, I was having a wonderful time, and it didn't appeal to me. I was always very joyful. And there was the Friends of the Western Buddhist Order. And I said, no, I never won't have a guru. And it never occurred to me that I would ever go to India, or I couldn't make, I'd never made, I didn't have a phone for 15 years. I'd never made a long distance phone call. I hadn't really traveled outside of England. And then a girlfriend went up to London and met people who were going around in a van giving realization to people, and with a lady who she said was like a mother, but also a guru. And I thought, well, that sounds nice. And I said, well, so, you know, give it a shot. Work on my chakras. I mean, I was open to that. So she did. And I had the sensation of that I would have listening to a favorite Santana guitar solo, basically. I mean, I loved music. And I wonder to this day if I hadn't already at some point had some kind of illumination or whatever, because I understood at some point that if one wasn't true to oneself, somehow one might be off to the left or to the right of oneself, not seated in one's body, in one's spirit. I didn't see it like that specifically. So that was nice. And so I said, well,
when it's happened that to get your realization from those people, when?
Well, this was 1979.
Yeah.
And so I went up to London, and I went up to London with my best friend's girl, his girlfriend, and we went to Caxton Hall, and we were a bit late, and there were shoes outside, and I thought, well, this is pretty serious, you know. And we wandered in a bit late, and in this smallish room in Caxton Hall, not a very big room, but it was chock-a-block full of people, and right up the end was a tiny Indian lady in an enormous wooden chair. And she saw us, and she said, come in, there's room at the front. So we went in, and we went right up and sat very near her, and she proceeded to give a very amazing talk, and it involved talking about drugs and this kind of thing. Well, it was interesting. And then
so that was the first time when you meet Sri Mataji?
Yeah, absolutely.
By that time you have the realization.
Well, I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know. I cannot say to you, and
Yeah.
I know other people like this who might have had their realization. They knew what it was when they met Mother. So, no, it's very interesting. And then I sat there, and Mother put her foot on my back. She turned around, she put her foot on my back, and people were working on me, and this kind of thing. And it was all very enjoyable. And it felt just the most natural thing in the world, basically. I mean, I'm not the person who could say, oh, my life was terrible. Oh, I was a hippie. Oh, I was a horrible person. Oh, my life changed. It was a miracle. It was the most natural segue, if you like, into Sahaja Yoga. And then I went up to London, to Dollis Hill, where there was the little house where they were living in there, and found that they were very nice people, very like my good friends that I loved very much, except that they weren't chasing girls or smoking dope or tobacco or anything. And very quickly, I stopped smoking, and I was never a drinker. It wasn't my poison. Horrible stuff. Alcohol kills you. So yeah, that was it. And yeah. And yeah, I was at the time I was working. I was working for the local bus company doing surveys and stuff like that. I met some of the early yogis on there as well. I don't know if you've ever met Ray Harris and Paul Winters. Not he's out in Thailand now. Ray Harris is in England. I mean, yeah, and that was a marvelous time. I mean, the London group were fantastic, and there were a few people there, ex-TM people that Mother had saved, and yeah, we had a wonderful time. What to say? And of course, you know, we had. I was there for, I suppose, until 1984, and in 1984, I got a phone call in my office that I had at that point a coach office, a bus office that I was running, and at 4 p.m. I was reading a magazine. There was nobody, no one in the office with me. And I had a phone call from Gavin, who was the leader of the UK Sahaja Yogis. And he said, "I got a message for you from Sri Mataji." And I thought, oh my God, I've been a naughty boy. Perhaps I'm going to be thrown out of the ashram, because we had a little ashram, basically, where about 5 or 6 of us were living and having a wonderful time. And he laughed and laughed and laughed. He was enjoying himself. I mean, these sort of things are very, very good fun. These sort of intimate and embarrassing things in Sahaja Yoga are very enjoyable. And he said, no, it's not that. He said, Sri Mataji said, how would you like to marry Ruth? I said, oh, well, of course you didn't say no to Sri Mataji. Sri Mataji knew what I was up to. She knew everything about me. In fact, earlier on, she'd said, if it makes you happy, I had already married someone else who wasn't a yogini sometime before, out of probably misguided, what Mother would call misguided compassion. And she said, if it makes you happy. I remember on a stairwell asking, and she said, if it makes you happy. And so I was technically married at the time. And I said to Gavin...
Just a question. You knew Ruth by that time? I mean,
no, I had no idea who she was.
Okay, yeah.
Interesting thing. Well, let me just divert there. I mean, once at a meeting in All Saints Hall in All Saints Temple in London, I remember there was this strange French girl who stood up in 1981 and was talking to Sri Mataji about travel and this kind of thing. She had herself just come into Sahaja Yoga then, I find out later on. And then in 1983, we had a Guru Puja at Lodge Hill in Sussex. And she arrived with a friend and with Sri Mataji, basically, in Sri Mataji's car, with my friend Paul Winter in his car. And I didn't pay much attention because Mother was in the car. So, and I think it was a very early international puja, basically. I mean, it was our Brighton group that was organizing it. So I spent a lot of time grilling chickens and this kind of thing. And we made, I suppose, about 150, 200 people. It was early days, 83. And we made a little candlestick. We had them made as presents to give away. And there were photographs of Mother and this kind of thing. So, I mean, yeah, she'd been there, but I only realized this years later, you know, that it was her. So there it was. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, if Mother suggests this, yes, but who's Ruth? So he explained that she was the leader in Rome, that she was a Swiss diplomat. And I said, Gavin, that's a bit above my pay grade. I mean, I was basically running a little office at the same sort of level. I was never a big career man. I was running an office at the same sort of seniority as someone who would sell you a ticket through a bloody window in a railway station, you know. I mean, no big cheese. You know, it wasn't a hard thing to leave. I mean, I loved the job because I had the office to myself, and I could. I was also a tourist person as well, so I was looking after people coming on and off coaches and giving tourist information and that kind of thing. A people job, like I started out as a librarian, and it was good fun. I've always liked that sort of thing. So he said, I said, I've got no money. I said, I've got no passport. He said, oh, he was laughing and laughing and laughing. He said, oh, we can sort that all out. I said, and when would it be? And that was it was. I think that was in that would have been in January. Would have been maybe February already. So what happened was this guy Paul, who was driving the car with Srimataji and at Lodge Hill, lent the money for the ticket to go to India. And I had to say to my boss, well, I'm going off to India. And he was a very sweet guy, the boss of the bus company. You know, he said, yeah, we've got people out in India there. He's a Christian. He was a very nice chap. And he said, how long would you be going for? I said, I don't really know. I think a week or two. So he said, all right. So he could arrange someone to look after the office while I was gone. So there it was. I ended up on my first international flight going with Gavin and his daughter to India. And I mean, it was extraordinary. I mean, in those days, there were no cars in India. We ended up in Mumbai, as it was then, not it was Bombay in those days. We took a taxi up to Pune the following morning, and we went up the Ghats Road. There was no superhighway in those days like there is now. So it was terrifying. I mean, the taxi driver was overtaking all the time. It's a narrow road. There were ladies in saris. I mean, it's completely strange to me. Looking over the side, there were lots of rusted cars where people had fallen off the road. Very dramatic. And we ended up in Pune, and yeah, and I was that day, yeah, and that night we had a thali for 2 rupees in Pune. Imagine 2 rupees for a thali. And the following morning, we went to where the marriages were going to be, and that was the thing. And I wander in there, and there's Ruth and a whole bunch of friends, and that's how we met. And we
That
just
wasn't the India tour, Kingsley.
Yeah, it was on an India tour. It was one of these.
In December, in end of the year, or
no. This was the start of the year. We were talking about, as far as I recall. My God, so long ago. Yeah, it would have been early in the year, when you had 2 4-week tours overlapping, one week overlapping.
Okay, so by that time the tour wasn't in the end of the year, like like later.
No, the tour was underway, and so we had a week together. I mean, we hit it off immediately. And Mother always said, "Oh, you shouldn't talk about things before Sahaja Yoga, and you should be discreet." And we weren't at all. We just hit it off like old friends, basically, and went off after this to after all our friends had laughed and enjoyed the embarrassing moment. Went off to buy the wedding gear. And we had a whale of a time. And that week was fantastic. We were on tour with Mother, on the road. And Ruth was feeding me chickpeas and yeah, we were getting to know each other. And then come the Friday, yeah, it was that it was a week. And come the Friday, we got married. And there we were, one of 26 couples in Bordi. Wandering around the fire. Srimataji was wandering between the fires in this green sari, arranging, fixing everything, correcting things. It was quite magical. And you feel really married after that. I mean, you really do. And of course, there were no marriage forms or anything. These were all arranged by Srimataji's 26 marriages, and there was one at the Dave Dunphy was right at the end with his lovely wife, and she's a remarkable lady. She goes right back to the start of Sahaja Yoga, and there we were. And that afternoon, Ruth went back to Rome, back to her job. And I was completely dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. I had really, I mean, Mother says you shouldn't fall in love, but I was crazy about her. I mean, we had such a nice week together, and we went together so well, and we always have done. And you really feel that Mother knows you inside out, and she knew exactly how we would fit together psychologically and how we would need each other and love each other. And it was absolutely magical. So I mean, I had to wait 8 weeks, and my dear sister Pamela Bromley, who's deceased now, she's gone, but she said, "That's all right." She said, "You'll see her again in 8 weeks. Don't worry." So I sort of sat back and enjoyed the next, the next 2 weeks. Was it 3 weeks? And it was fabulous. We went to Ajanta Caves. We went to Ellora. We did wonderful things. It was a wonderful tour, and you know, being on tour with Mother is an extraordinary experience. I mean, I remember once. I mean, I had 1 or 2 tours with her after that, but I remember once crossing a stage in front of Mother, and you could feel as if there was a huge helix, a huge aeroplane propeller turning slowly behind her. The vibrations were so amazing, you know. Yeah, so that's really how we met, and that was our life. And then 8 weeks later, I fetch up in Rome. Well, my God, I told you this. That as a young lad, I was already at private school when I was a little boy. I was learning about classical history and a little bit of French, une série, deux séries, trois séries, you know, coloring cherries and counting. And suddenly here I was, you know, in Rome. And I've always had a passion for history. And we had 3 months together in Rome, and we got to know the Italian Sahaja Yogis. And of course, Ruth was one of the prime movers there, because she had been there right from the start in 1981, when Gregoire was there and his wife, and Mother was there, and Mother was going around helping postering and all sorts of things. I mean, it was an incredible time. I mean, you know, Ruth had a flat there, and Mother would come and stay and eat with everybody. I mean, these were amazing times, and very. If you talk about that these days, people can't quite believe it, because
Yes.
Sri Mataji has become a sort of a distant figure, but she wasn't for us at all. I mean, I have such amazing memories. I mean, not in great detail. Ruth and some of the ladies here in Switzerland, who, like Gregoire's widow, Catherine, spent a lot of personal, close time with Sri Mataji, helping her to prepare for programs, helping her to dress for programs, sleeping in the same room, all this kind of thing, which is quite extraordinary.
But you still have some memories with Shimataji. What do you remember
Absolutely. I mean, for
from that
instance,
time?
well, for instance, on one occasion, before the marriage and everything, I remember in our ashram in Brighton, we had a puja, and I was pouring honey over Sri Mataji's hands, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, this is, you know, witnessing this was an extraordinary thing, because here was this Indian lady diplomat of fine breeding, and you know, I'm still a bloody ex-hippie, you know. I might have still been wearing red in those days. I had a big thing about wearing red at some point. I mean,
Just a question. When you said you pour honey on Shimataji's hand, was a puja, was a
yeah, it was
process
puja.
of amrut?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
was
making the amrut during the puja.
making
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
amrut on
And in those
Shrimataji's.
days, well, what a lot of people don't realize these days is we weren't only worshipping the feet. We were making amrut. We were working on with Shrimataji's hands as well, which was amazing. I mean, and you may have seen early photographs where she has a swastika on one hand and a cross on the other.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first black and white photograph hints at that. We call it the all aspects photograph, because
Yes.
and this is very famous, of course. And yeah, I mean, there were many things. I mean, Srimataji came to, after Rome. We went to Strasbourg because Ruth was posted to the Council of Europe, and mother came and visited us there. And I remember she was going to turn up for a program, and then she couldn't get the flight, and she came the next day. So Gregoire did the program, and she came the next day, quite by surprise. And we were living in Strasbourg, in Boulevard de l'Orangerie. And, you know, I well remember the car arriving at the end of the road and hooting, excited hooting. And I don't know why, I mean, I had taken the head off. It was a house. It was we had a flat, and there was also a consulate there, I think. And so there was a nice rose garden out the front. And I took the head off some of the roses and scattered them into the lift. Mm-hmm. And so Srimataji arrives in the car, and this was one of the rare occasions when she took my hand, and she came out of the car, and we went into the lift. And she said, "Oh, it's full of flowers." And and I said, "Thank you so much for coming, Mother." And she said, "I came because you asked, you know, and it was lovely it was your desire." And so there's a nice video there of '85 in our living room with Mother there, which was quite remarkable. I mean, we were so young, my God. And
I want to ask you something. I promise I will come back to Strasbourg. You are talking about doing puja to Srimataji with amrut on her hands. Obviously, we know both of them with the hands and with Srimataji's hands and feet, or sometimes with hands, sometimes with feet. I have a question for you regarding the importance of amruta, because I witness in some circumstances during the puja, many times in some collectivity, it doesn't really matter where, the Sahaja Yogi are not doing the amruta on Srimataji's feet at all. It's not about hands or feet. It's about putting the elements on Srimataji's picture, usually feet.
Yes.
So they don't do that. They just, for whatever reasons, they just offer the little glasses made by silver, not a problem, to Srimataji's feet. That's all. And I said, why you don't put it? Because that's the point of doing the amruta.
They don't pour.
No. So what's your opinion about that?
Well, it's ridiculous. And there's a lot of people, and this is an Indian thing, I think, where people worship the padukas, these silver slippers, which is absolute nonsense. I mean, you're there to worship Mother, not the padukas. Now, this comes from a misunderstanding among the Indians, because Mother at some point had blessed some padukas and said, you know, but that's not her feet. No, of course. And I don't understand how you don't pour and the other thing it's interesting to note is that a lot of the time people lose the order of the elements, and you should always end up with the sugar and then the water, because the sugar cleans off the rest. It has
but you know the order, Kingsley.
Oh, I don't know the order. I forget. I tell you what, Daniel, I forget everything. I mean, basically,
that's very easy, Kingsley. Never too late to remember. It's very, very easy to remember.
Well, I think that generally speaking, you go in the order of viscosity. I mean, it's actually common sense. And as I say, you end up with at the end, the sugar is the one that helps to clean off the rest and wash off the rest.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I don't get I don't get dogmatic about very many things, to be honest. But obviously, you're going to use the photograph, and pour the elements over the photograph.
How you make how you make people to understand that? Because honestly, I exhaust all the reasons.
Daniel, it's a
Probably
question
not
of
not
Daniel.
totally.
It's a simple matter of common sense and protocol, and people have lost a lot of that. And these days people are very shy, I think, about teaching the protocols of Sahaja Yoga, which are very simple and basic common sense.
Yes.
You don't turn your back to the photograph. You don't do personal things in front of the photograph,
Don't put
and
the
so
feet.
on and so on.
Yeah.
You certainly never put the feet towards the photograph.
Yeah.
But these days, I think it's because it's very hard to find genuine seekers, and there are fewer and fewer in some ways, and people are embarrassed to say too much. I don't know why, because if you're a seeker and you feel the vibrations and you understand to some extent what it is as you come in, then the rest ought to follow. But I mean, people were quite strict with me at Dollis Hill in '79, and I appreciate it. I mean, and protocol was an important topic, and it ceased to be quite as important. And to me, it's just obvious that you're worshipping Mother's feet. So if you had been, the logic is, if you had been there in the room with Srimataji, you
Exactly.
would pour the Amrut over her feet, and you would rub her feet as well at some point.
Yes.
And we had the joy of that. Of course, it was an amazing experience. So that is why you would pour the elements over her photograph. It's common sense. I mean, are they going to not wash her feet? Are they going to offer water, a cup of water to her feet? I mean, if you wash the feet, then you offer the elements. I mean, it's I can't understand. I'm amazed you tell me that, quite honestly. I haven't come across that.
I hope you won't come across to that ever, but I came, and more than that, I try to address it somehow, but I'm not successful at all.
But like
Uh,
common sense. One of the things that Srimataji said is that Sahaja Yoga is 99% common sense. And people get very wound up about technicalities and this and that, and which photograph to use when and where, and all this. You've seen all this on online on these
yeah,
chat rooms, and that's one reason why I avoid all these things, because to me it's an incredibly simple thing, Sahaja Yoga. I mean, once you're past the initial stages of about the chakras and how to identify the situation, you rely to a large extent on intuition and common sense, and I can't get steamed up about details, particularly myself,
how
having
do
had
you,
some wonderfully shocking experiences of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. I mean,
on that perspective, how do you think about the people who are not trusting themselves, their common sense, or their own power of guru, when sometimes some Sahaja asking no brain questions, which basically should be very easy uh, answers, and they are quite lost. Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? For me, that's a sign of probably not reaching the enough maturity, enough wisdom. And I'm not talking about the new people.
yeah. You know, um, in February, I was at the Ganga village having an amazing time, and somebody there said to me, asked me the question very excitedly, why don't people come here more? Why don't people understand? Why don't they donate? Of course, it's a very long way away, and people don't really know very much about this project. This is a project 20 years in the making. It was Mother's last great project, the Ganga village. as such, started by Lothar Pfeiffer, the German yogi, a fabulous guy. And he did something that nobody else could manage, thanks to his faith in Mother. And I said to her, well, hang on a minute. People don't know about this. I said, how many people in the Sangha do you think are often in Nirvichara Samadhi? How often do people really go thoughtless? And how many have experienced Nirvikalpa Samadhi? How many have absolutely no doubt? Daniel, I'm far from perfect. I don't judge people. I'm still have a lot to learn and a lot to grow. And I'm an old man. I might never make it. But I might be a lousy yogi, but I am a yogi, and I know I'm a yogi. And that's an extraordinary thing for a Western person to come to that realization. And it's largely because I've been up there. And Srimataji said of this place, if you go there, you will find the real Sahaja Yoga. And the vibrations there are so powerful. The first time I went there, my whole personality, my whole ego completely deconstructed. And everyone should have that experience to go, because for a Western person, meditation, religion, spirituality, it's all mental.
Yeah.
What's wrong with all the great religions is the mental aspect. What's wrong with anything in Sahaja Yoga is mental. Thinking. And of course, all the associated guilt and planning and blah, blah, blah. And and I've been very blessed and lucky, Daniel, and until you've had that experience where you can sit there and witness being just a spirit, and then you don't, everything becomes very clear. You don't really need to know a lot of theory and argument and judgment and all this kind of thing, because I am the spirit. And this is an extraordinary thing. I'm still, let me tell you, I'm 78. I still can't believe it all. I can't believe my own life. Mentally speaking, it's crazy. It's like a Spielberg or it's Star Wars. It's unbelievable. Dan Brown couldn't write a better story than my life, but it happened. I'm here today. I married 42 years with this remarkable woman. I'm here today. I've traveled around. I never planned to have a family. I never planned to marry. I didn't plan anything. And here it is. And why? Because of Mother.
Well,
and
Professor,
she gave me all.
Yeah. Professor Langton, I have two questions for you.
Have you read the latest Dan Brown, The Secret of Secrets?
Yeah, of course.
It's absolutely bloody remarkable.
Yes.
And all yogis should read this, because it really hits the nail on the head. Of
Exactly.
course, he makes a sort of spy novel out of it. He makes an interesting story. It's very captivating as a novel, but he said when he started researching for the book, his mother had died, and he thought, that's it, she's gone, boom. And his attitude completely changed, his attitude towards death, while he was writing the book. And it's a fabulous book. And I recommend it to a lot of people, yogis and non-yogis, because it's an incredible story.
Unfortunately, Dan Brown still lives as a author under the shadow of his second book, the Da Vinci Code, which
Yes.
I wasn't too fond of the background, what he tried to make there. But it's a curse for him, because he will always be remembered by that one. Everything else after that, including the last one, Secret of Secrets, which I consider it the best from the perspective of the subject. Speaking about the spiritual things. But my question to you is about talking about religions and the mental approach. um, my perspective on the mental approach is that even in Sahaja Yoga, um, we try to transform and wrongly build cosmetic Sahaja culture, not the deepest one,
Oh yeah, yeah,
only
yeah,
the exterior. Let's
yeah,
dress like the Indians. Let's put big tikka, which I do it
yeah.
every night. But and let's eat Indian food. And I don't. Let's have Indian names. You don't become a better Sahaja Yogi doing that, or even you don't become a Sahaja Yogi doing that.
Daniel, let me tell you another
What's
book
your
that
opinion
influenced
about
me.
that?
Another book that influenced me profoundly and many years before Sahaja Yoga was by Trungpa. Well, anyway, it was by a Trungpa. It was by, I forget the name of the author now. But the book it's by a Tibetan. And the title was Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. And that made a profound impression on me because
Spiritual materialism.
yeah. And what are we talking about? Spiritual materialism. We're talking exactly about that. And Shimaji has said, Sahaja Yoga is just one of my aspects. So,
Exactly.
I really don't go with its mother. It's cosmic consciousness, to put a too fine a point on it. And one of the great blessings of having felt absolute doubtless awareness is that as one gets older, it's actually a voyage of discovery. It's not something to be, one's body gets weaker somehow, but one's senses and one's intuitions and one's sense of the virata and yeah, I mean, you meet cats and dogs, you watch the birds, you grow the plants, and you feel more and more and more that it's all conscious, it's all alive. And that's mother. It's not just in a photograph. I mean, I pull my ears. I mean, I love the photograph. The photograph is the most beautiful thing, but it's not just in our culture. And it's not just at the moment, there's a debate about singing
Yeah.
about this thing about
The water.
the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I find horrible. It's a slavery. It's a slave song. I crease up when I hear that, and I crease up a bit when there's a lot of these sort of look. Why can't someone in Sahaja Yoga write something really good? Good
Yes.
music,
Yeah.
solid music,
Yeah.
not derivative, not that we used to sing as Christians and we changed the words and blah blah blah. I mean, I'm a little bit like that, so I know where you're coming from. Cutting through
Uh,
spiritual materialism.
uh,
What was
I,
his name? Yeah, it was a Rinpoche. He was a Rinpoche. But this really struck me. And this is before Sahaj. I was doing astrology and this kind of thing. And with all the books, it wasn't like a computer program. So, yeah, I don't like it when... I shouldn't say that. You're not supposed to say I don't like anything, but I don't like it if people get wound up about fine detail in Sahaj. I'm not a scholar of Sahaja Yoga. I must be honest. I'm a scholar of I would like to hope a scholar of love. Which is a bit inflated, but that's what it should be.
I believe we can find the beauty, the truth, and the spirituality in all culture, in all types of arts, in literature, in music,
Absolutely,
in
absolutely,
Western
absolutely.
one, in
Oh yeah,
Eastern one. So we
absolutely.
have to enjoy this kind of stuff
Yeah.
for all the. Uh,
The best art is autobiographical. It always is. It comes from the heart, it comes from the spirit.
yes.
So the curious thing is that I grew up in the 70s with a lot of music that was like by John McLaughlin, who was out with Chinmoy and all these false gurus, and Santana, who was,
Yeah.
who spouts absolute rubbish but plays
Yeah.
like an angel.
Yeah.
And for me, the most beautiful music is the music that comes from
Yeah.
love and from the heart.
From the
And
heart.
it doesn't matter if even if it's like George Harrison. I mean, my God, the poor guy died of throat cancer like his false guru. But my God,
Yes.
he was a naughty boy with the girls. But I can't get wound up on that sort of thing. Some of his music is so divinely lovely,
Yeah.
and it moves you. And I want to be moved. I want to feel joy. I think that's what life. If you don't feel joy in your life, and I've just been so blessed. I mean, I can't criticize anyone who doesn't feel joy, because I've just been blessed. Only that. I am probably, out of all the people you've ever met, the luckiest man you will ever meet.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I rediscover you after 36 years, because everything you told me, that's music for my ears, both of them, because I am on exactly on the same page with you, and I don't want now to move the screen to show you my CD collections with everything you talk about, including John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu John McLaughlin,
Yeah, right.
if
And
you
Shakti,
remember.
the band
Okay,
Shakti. Yeah, yeah.
he have a false guru, that's true, but he get rid of that in the end, like George Harrison as well, like Beatles. But everything you told me, I'm exactly on the same page, and I'm always on the crusade to tell to the Sahaja Yogis, old or new, that they have to enjoy everything who have.
Daniel, we're lucky because we have a certain age and because we lived through a certain period. And this
Yeah,
was it. And everybody you meet of our age in their 70s will tell you it was a golden era. It was a golden era,
that's
especially
true.
in the West. I mean, we were blessed. Of course, there were terrible regimes. Of course, there had been terrible wars. Of course, there have been terrible crimes in the name of humanity since.
Yeah.
But for us in Western Europe, my God, it was a period of growth and prosperity, and great joy and possibility of living life as a seeker in a beautiful way.
And was a shift in the paradigm in the 70s, because everything who was old, uh, stiff, Victorian in a bad way, was kind of
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
turned around by this movement, who have
yeah,
the hippie movement and 70s have a lot of bad things
yeah,
without them. But on the other hand, they come with that
yeah.
new joy of enjoying, new way of enjoying life. Um, we can talk until tomorrow about this kind of stuff, and I'm very glad that I have a good partner in you. But
What else do you want
I
to know? Come on, I'm game still. It's okay if you've got the time. It's all right. I quite like the evenings.
um, I I propose to because
I can't promise you a lot of time because we're having going through a very busy period. I mean, we'll be doing international Diwali puja here later in the year. Uh, Now tomorrow we're going up to our another great blessing. We have a chalet in the mountains where it's 10 degrees cooler,
yeah,
and yeah, there's the garden. There's a lot happening. With our family and what have you. So I can't always guarantee you a lot of time. So make the most of it, Daniel. If you want to grill me,
uh,
I'm
uh,
yours for the.
I um, I like very much talking with you, because we have two things very interesting: your memories, but also your opinion. So when we go together with this kind of stuff, telling some of your memories with Shimataji or without Shimataji, but on the other hand, trying to make sense about few things, changing opinion about
Yeah.
some of the things which surround us in a spiritual way, not politically. That's a pleasure for me. But for the next time, if you agree, We will talk about when we will be next time, but for next time, I really like some of your memories from the period in Bulgaria, because that's where I meet you and Ruth for the first time. You don't remember me because I was one of the many Sahaja Yogis. I was with, we went in 1990, and after that again with
Yeah, we were
Uncle
with
Dan,
Dan. Yeah,
Uncle
Dan.
Dan Costian. After that, you came in Romania. We don't have any interaction by that time, but I know you. I know Ruth was the leader of Bulgaria, because by that time Bulgaria do not have a proper leader. Was a lady there, which I know her from 1990.
Yeah,
I have a sister in Bulgaria, the Galina. Maybe you know Galina, the one who speaks French.
yeah.
So I want to talk about this period. That's one. And secondly, um, I have another question. If it's possible, I would really like sometimes to talk with Ruth as well.
Yes, of
So
course.
um, if you manage to persuade her, to ask her if she want to have some
Yeah, I'm sure she'd be happy to.
okay. On that note, I believe will be good to stop just because one of the period in your life was kind of
Yeah,
finished now, and we go to another one next time. I want to thank you very much for your time, for your memories, for everything
it's a pleasure.
you told me. It's a big pleasure to talk with people who get the realization that early in Sahaja Yoga, who know
Yeah,
Shimataji that early in Sahaja
yeah.
Yoga, to have all this, not knowledge, it's not about knowledge. It's
No,
about the common sense and the feeling.
it's the
Um,
feeling.
and I'm happy to talk with people like you, and I thank you very much for that.
My pleasure, Daniel.
And we have to say goodbye to our to the people who are watching us, thanking them for having enough patience to stay with us, and we will catch up again.
Yeah, we should discuss on WhatsApp when
We will
the next
discuss after
meeting.
we
I can't
finish.
look at the calendar now. It's
Yes,
okay.
we will discuss after we finish the recording.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and Jai Shri Mataji.
Jai Sri Mataji.